Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Vanessa and I'm an author from Toronto, Canada, and I publish under the pen name A.N. Sage. I write a lot of fantasy, a lot of mystery, and a lot of mayhem, as you may have noticed from the intro and my author tagline. On this channel, I talk a lot about tips for authors, things that I've learned along the way of being both indie and trad published, just having some behind the scenes, and just general advice for being a creative entrepreneur in today's landscape. So if that sounds like something that you want to see more of, then make sure that you're subscribed and that you hit the bell notification so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Now, we are in the month of October, or as those of us who are participating in NaNoWrimo like to call it, Preptober. So I wanted to dedicate this month all to different things that we can do to help ourselves succeed during the next grueling month of NaNoWrimo, which is coming up next month, starting in November. Now, in the last video, if you haven't seen it yet, then make sure to go and watch it because I talked about a new app or platform or whatever it is you want to call it. It's called Dabble, and it's something that I am currently switching over to, and I absolutely love it. So I'm going to be using Dabble to write your Nano, and it's great because it actually integrates into your NaNoWrimo platform. So as you write, it'll update all your words on there. So you don't have to go in and sign in if you don't want to, unless there's some tweaks you want to do. But I think it's fantastic so far. And my favorite part is the plotting tool, which I've been playing more and more around with. And it's so great for those of us who like to plot. So check out the video, check out Dabble. Not sponsored, but just wanted to mention it. But today what I actually want to talk about is plotting. I talk a lot about plotting, and I think this is where Dabble kind of kickstarted it all for me because I am a plotter. I am pantsing a Portal fantasy series for a subscriber base on Ream, but that's a whole different story that I'll also do more videos about. But for the most part, I plot. I write a lot of mystery, and so I need to know when certain things happen. I need to have everything laid out. But I do understand that not everybody is like that. And when you're writing for something like NaNoWrimo, you want to have a little bit of an idea of what you're writing about, at least in my opinion, because otherwise you're just going to run off the rails and you might write yourself into a corner, or worse, everything that you draft, because it's such a fast, grueling process, might go to waste. You might have to cut a lot because things might not line up as you develop the story. So having somewhat of an idea of where your story and your characters are going is really helpful for Nano. And I thought today we could talk more about plotting. Now, if you want to see everything I'm talking about today in kind of a bit more detail and written down, I did just write a guest blog for my publisher's blog online. So I will link that below if you want to go see it. And there's also some templates that we already have in the resource library. So if you're part of the resource library, if you already signed on, you already have these. It's the one-page plot, it's the character development sheet, and it's the word count tracker for Nano. So if you're not part of the resource library, make sure you sign up because there's like a ton of resources there, and I'm working on adding some more before the year ends. But those are all completely free. But if you don't want to sign up for anything, I know emails can get a little bit wild and everybody has so many of them, then you can go ahead and check out this guest blog because you can get those 3 resources and those template sheets to download there as well without signing up for anything. Now, what do we do about plotting? So if you're not a plotter, what are some things that we can talk about that I think will help you figure out your story without sitting down and really knowing what happens in every single scene, in every single chapter, because that can get a little bit much. There's a lot of stuff that I like to plan out before I start drafting. However, when I'm working with different authors, I don't do that with them because a lot of them don't want to sit down and spend hours and weeks just plotting out a story and then having it change. So what we usually do is, it's called a simplified plot. So essentially what we do is we break down only the necessities of what you might need to figure out your novel just to get started, to get us writing, which is what we want to do during Preptober. We want to get us to a point where we start writing November 1st, right? That's the whole point of this. So there's 2 different things you want to look at when you're doing these rough, simplified plots. The first one is your protagonist. You want to develop them. And then the next one is your plot. So let's talk about the protagonist. What are some of the basics that you want to cover? The first one are the basics themselves. So you've got your eye color, hair color, skin color, mannerisms, if they have tics, if they have notable tattoos or scars or marks or anything like that. So those are the basics. You want to talk about if they have a job, what's that job? If they have like a word that they like to overuse in their sentences, what is that word? Cover the basics, jot it down. Don't go overly complicated with it, but just figure out like who this person is in your head. It really helps if you don't want to write this down. If you find an image of a person online for personal use only, of course, because we don't want to be thieving images from online. But if you have an image of this person, I find it helps me a lot. It cuts down on what I have to write down about the descriptions, because I just have a picture and then I can just reference that picture when I need to refresh my memory of what my protagonist looks like. Then you want to think about their personality traits. Are they kind? Are they skittish? Are they super brave? Do they run into danger head first, or are they somebody who kind of steps back and evaluates situations? Think about their personality traits. Do they like humor? Do they like to read? Are they loners? Do they have a lot of friends? Write those down. Make little notes about it. The next thing is when we start getting more into the meat of your protagonist. So you want to look at their past and try to think in minimal terms of what that might have looked like. They might have had a traumatic experience. They might have had an accident. They could have lost a loved one, things like that. So think about their past, because their past is going to help you understand who your character is today and why they're going to do certain things that they're going to do throughout your novel. It will help you relate to them more, and it will also help you know how they're going to react to certain things that you're going to throw their way, because in any book, you're going to be putting them through hell and back, whether physically, literally, or just symbolically. Otherwise, there's no book, right? So think about your protagonist's past and how that might affect their decision-making skills. You also want to talk about their goals and motivations. So on this sheet of paper that you have where you're describing your character, just make a headline, say goals and motivations, and think about what their goals might be. It doesn't have to be their entire life goals, but their goals as it relates to your specific story, to the novel at hand. And then when you know what their goals are, think about their motivations. So your goal of your protagonist throughout your story, let's say you're writing mystery, a young adult mystery. So the goal of your protagonist might be to figure out who killed their next door neighbor. Just random plot idea. And the motivation might be that they think the killer is out there and they might be next. So their motivation is to really solve this murder, figure out who killed their neighbor, or they might end up just like them. So goals and motivations usually play hand in hand because one often drives the other. Try to see what the goals and motivations are for your character. You don't have to have a lot of them. You could just have the one goal, or you could have a goal for the first part of the story, and then the second part of the story, midpoint and on. That goal could change because of something that happens to switch the plot to a different kind of way of behaving. As you're working on goals and motivations, you'll find yourself thinking about character arcs. That's another thing you might want to think about. So a simple character arc is basically a triangle. So you have where the character starts, where they are in the midpoint, and kind of where they end up at the end of the novel. And if you kind of know these three spots, you can work your character's reactions, how they try to get their goal, how they react to different plot points in order to stay on this kind of triangle or this arc, however you want to draw it out on your sheet of paper. And then the last two things is you want to think about their flaws or their vulnerabilities and also their relationships. So everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect. Whenever we develop a character, the first thing that I try to think about is what is wrong with them, essentially, because that makes them human, that makes them relatable. There's no perfect person out there, and so your protagonist can be perfect as well. Furthermore, their vulnerabilities will actually help you with your plotting, because you could give them things to do that might play to those vulnerabilities, that might play to their flaws and make it more difficult for them. So they'll develop and they'll grow and move along your arc a lot easier if you're thinking about their flaws ahead of time. And then their relationships, those are B characters. They might have a best friend, significant other, family, a sister, brother, whatever, that they already have in their place when the story starts out. You don't need to think about who they're going to meet because that is very detailed and intensive. I'm trying to stay away from that. But essentially, no one is an island unto themselves. And so at the start of your story, there will already be a few relationships that are critical to your character's development in place. And so you want to jot those down. Now that you know who your protagonist is, which I find for me is kind of the bulk of it. I know that people get taken aback by plotting the actual story, but I think once you know who your character is, it's a lot easier to figure out what the story is because you can base your story off of them and their personality. So you want to think about your plot. The simplest way to do it is think of it in 3 acts. So you've got Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. Don't think about the chapters. Don't think about how many chapters there are. Just think of it the same way you thought about your character arc triangle, 3 different parts. So in Act 1, that's your introduction. Think about how you're going to set the stage for your story. You're going to introduce your protagonist here, so maybe make some notes on how they enter the story and maybe establish the central conflict here. So try to think about what could go wrong and what the main conflict of your story will be, because that's going to make its first appearance and rear its head in Act 1. 3 sentences, and we move on, right? Now we're going to go into Act 2, and this is the level of confrontation in your novel. So you want to think about Act 2 as the place where you will develop challenges. You're going to put obstacles in your protagonist's way, and you're going to try to prevent them from reaching that goal, which you already know what it is because you've thought about your protagonist. Your Act 2 will take 50% of your novel, and it's going to be broken up by the midpoint. Midpoint, as we talked about, is when a new goal might arise or things in the story just might change. If you're writing on 2 different worlds or 2 different realms, the midpoint is more often than not where you do that switch, unless you're doing it early on. But in the middle is where your Act 2 will split, and things will kind of go from top to bottom for your character fully. If you think about a perfect circle of where your story is and divide it down the center, you will have the first quarter on this kind of 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 12 point, which is your Act 1. And then the first quarter of your Act 2 will be the next quarter of the clock, if you're thinking of it as a circular clock. And then we're moving to the bottom section. So your whole character's world is turning upside down after the midpoint. You're going to have your last section of Act 2, kind of between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. And then between 6 and 9 again is your Act 3. So when you're moving into Act 3, you're already on the bottom side of your story, kind of the upside down world, almost like, I'm trying to think of like a good example. So maybe not like a hellish world, because it doesn't have to be a fantasy thing, but something that is the opposite of where your character came from. Your character is now in a very unfamiliar place for them in their story. And Act 3 is what brings you to the resolution. We make a full 360, and the resolution takes you back to normality. So we're going to flip upside down again. In your resolution, as you're working towards it, you want to bring your story to a climax. In Act 3 is where the main meat of what we've been looking for comes to a head. So all those goals, all those motivations, everything that has been driving your character forward, your main conflict, is going to come to a climax in the resolution in Act 3. So you want to provide a resolution to the central conflict somewhere in this area. So write down what that resolution might look like. You can change it as you go, but just have a basic idea. If there's a big bad, maybe your protagonist defeats the big bad. If there is a love story with conflicts, then maybe this is where they resolve everything and the happily ever after happens. But the resolution happens in Act 3. So as you're going through, as you're jotting it down, you're going to write Act 1, your 3 sentences, Act 2, what happens in the confrontation, and maybe what the midpoint is. That helps me a lot as well. And then Act 3, the resolution of what that will look like. And you have 2 pieces of paper, one for your protagonist, one for your plot, and you're done plotting. You are ready to go. This exercise could take you anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour. It should not take you more. It should be very quick, very simple. This is a rough, simplified plotting exercise. But once you have it down, I think you will be amazed with how much more enthusiastic you will be for your story. It might open up more ideas. You might continue to plot after this. He might plot out chapter by chapter after this, but for the most part, to get started in drafting on November 1st in NaNoWrimo, all you really need are these very basic ideas in your head written down somewhere so you don't forget them, and kind of a direction on where you can take your story as you start writing. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions about plotting, if you have any more detailed questions about plotting, we could do more videos on that. I do have some playlists already in the writing advice. There should be a plotting playlist kicking around there somewhere that goes into step by step, where we talk about every single thing on the detailed plotting sheets that are in the resource library. But otherwise, if you just follow these very simple steps and you've got your 2 pieces of paper or 1 piece of paper, 2-sided, I think you'll be good to go to get started to draft your novel. So let me know in the comments where you're at in your Preptober journey. Are you ready for Nano? Are you doing Nano this year? And comment, if it's not a secret, what it is you'll be working on. I am working on book 4 of Orchard Hollow, which is my paranormal cozy mystery series. So Devil in the French Press is going to be my project of choice. In November, I am hoping to get the bulk of it written so that I only have a little bit left to do in December, and then I can revise and send it off. So that's the plan. What is your plan? Let me know. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, and stay magical, and I will see you next week. Bye.